Alright folks, welcome to this exciting video where you once again join us in the wild landscape of Scotland. And once again for this adventure we're joined by the channel DJ out here. And once again just check out this view folks, it's absolutely incredible. Today we're on a hill in Angus here called Finavon Hill, and on the top of this hill there's apparently remains of an old fort. So that's what we're away to find today in this adventure. An old hilltop fort, abandoned and forgotten in a hilltop here on this wild land, and it's so cool to come and document stuff like this. Never seen before on the channel. We just love fresh adventures and fresh places like this. Just look at the show of the yellow shrubs here that's up on the hill. Those are mad like spiky bushes, but the yellow flower just looks so incredible on these hills at this time of year. We're just staying vigilant for ticks as well on this adventure folks, because they are within the landscapes at this time of year. But we just thought this adventure's no bad because the grass is quite short. Yeah, it could be windy in this adventure as well folks once we go up the hill, but we'll see how that is. I do apologise for any wind in the audio of this adventure, but sometimes to see the coolest things you need to go into the most crazy extreme environments like this. Check that out for a view folks, an absolute incredible scene over the wild lands that we normally explore on these adventures on this channel. It's so incredible to look over the hills in the distance, over the distant glens, and then in the nearer lands here it's the agricultural fields of Angus, and it's just impressive. We are just slowly making our way up this extreme incline here on the hill, and we're just hoping that we're on the right hill. It's one of these adventures folks, if you walk up the wrong hill it's often an extreme adventure, and then you have to come all the way back down and then go up the right hill. So yeah, but we're pretty sure this is it. And these are interesting, these hills at Finavon, because they're actually solid bedrock hills, a bit like what we saw at the Memes Hill when we were at the Charles Lyell Stone. Yeah, you can actually see the bedrock here folks. Look, we're way up near the top of the hill and it just shows you it's a big stone rock that we're standing on. And look, it's the sedimentary rock with the pebbles through it, which we've seen other places. Yeah, it's just years of geology here folks. And these ancient forts were quite often built on pinnacles of land like this, way up high, like overlooking massive vast landscapes. And you have to imagine when these ancient hill forts were built, most of this land may have been wild and untamed, and it could have been lush forests. The fort might have been looking out over the top of like a forest, and you would maybe just see other forts in the distance with the little chimneys smoking or whatever was going on. Anyway folks, we're just about at the top here. Look at this folks, we're right at the top of this hill here. We're seeing no obvious signs of this fort. The wind's so extreme, but so is the view. And often, anytime you're at the top of a hill like this, it's quite windy, it seems to be in Scotland. So those stones there folks will just be left there from the agriculture when the boys been clearing the land. The actual fort's actually over this direction a little bit more. Right folks, so we're just up at the top of that hill for a look, and it turns out the actual fort is potentially on top of this hill over here, which is a different hill. And I'm actually parked way down at the foot of that hill down there. So yeah, sometimes when you're exploring, that's what it's like. We're trying to pinpoint history here and then share it with the world once we find it. But it's crazy often exploring landscapes like this. The terrain is so steep, it's just mad. Anyway, we're about to head over. There's some geese flying over. Right, here we go folks. This is the secondary attempt here. Cheers. The secondary attempt here at going up a hill here up at Finavon. And this one's got a little hatch here to climb through. We saw this when we parked and we assumed it was maybe just for gamies and stuff accessing this hill, because that's the hill over there we were just up a minute ago. But we believe this is definitely the hill here now. And it actually looks like it has been changed or landscaped up there, but it's hard to tell obviously until we get up there. There's meant to be some interesting little details of history within this ancient fort. So we're going to try and uncover everything we can see here. tell a story of the history up here in Finhaven. And look, there's a little pond and stuff over there. Look at this, folks, we're on top of the world right here. I think it's a little less windy over on this hill than what it was over there. And the view looks incredible, with the sun lighting up the hills and stuff there. And yeah, we're away to keep on heading up to the peak of this hill here. These steep Scottish hills are an absolute killer. Check this out, folks, this here is the perimeter stone line which goes around this ancient fort. And this is it in front of us. Look at the well. Yeah, it's a massive well there. See the thing, the Carterthans, the ancient hilltop fort at the Carterthans had a well like this as well. Check this out, folks, once again we're stepping back in history, and this time almost 2,000 years. Imagine the people here in this hilltop settlement. It's often like places like this is history before it was even like written down. Like, we don't know the people's names and what they did here, but a lot of the time they suspect that these hilltop forts were like hunter-gatherer type people that would go out into the wilderness and the woodlands hunting and then bring their catch and stuff back here. And it's theorised that they lived on the lower ground in the winters when it was colder, and then they would move up here in the summer in the hunting season and spend their time up in these hill forts. And there would have been proper communities back in the day. And look, there's piles of stones. This is all built. Pretty much the perimeter here has all been built with ancient stones. But like a lot of things over the years, it's covered up by years of vegetation. Look how deep this well is. Wow. We need to go down inside this well. This is so cool. Just think, they were at the top of a hill here and they were able to dig down to actually get water. And that's through thick, hard stone, because these hills here are just solid rock, and you can see the bedrock right around the side. Wow. It's like a lot of the old castles as well. They dug down and had a well inside the castles. A fort is just like an early ancient thing from before that. Often as well, like, these would have been so much deeper if you consider the years that's passed since this fort was in its prime. Just think how deep it must have been originally. And it even looks like here scrap and stuff's been thrown in, maybe for a farmer and that over the years. Yeah, it's right down in. Sometimes people can tip stuff into a hole like this for years and it just keeps disappearing away into the ground. It's so crazy to look at these ancient rocks here and just think, this is the edge of an ancient well here. And what is an ancient fort? And it's just mad. It blows my mind, folks, seeing this sort of stuff. When you genuinely consider the folk that were standing or dropping a bucket down here to get their water, this would have been such a key, like, crucial part of the fort. Every meal, every day they would have needed the water from this well. And here I am able to document it and share it with the world before it gets fully covered over. And you can see the depth of it. I'm right down here at like the deepest point now. Yeah, about 3.5 humans height. Average human here, folks. So that's probably like, what would you say, like 10 metres deep or 20 foot. Charles DJ's reckoning up there, folks. And yeah, I reckon there's a lot of stuff been tipped in here over the years. And probably the sides have slowly been eroding in. But also this vegetation, it just builds up and grows over everything. Things like this just become a skeleton or a scar of the history. They've got a little story to tell, a forgotten story. And it's cool to bring it on the channel. But it's just mad to see the depth of this and the scale. But right enough, it would have been a main community, like a hub of a community, this place, and it was so important. Yeah, it almost looks like they've dug like a wide hole, and then the further down they've come, they've kept it narrower and narrower until eventually at the bottom it was probably super deep, even compared to this. Yeah, but sometimes if you just tap into the right bit, you can get water quite high up. It just depends, because it can flee up through the water with the water pressure. Yeah, this is so cool to see. It's blowing me away, folks. I knew there was like a fort and stuff up here, but I had no idea about the well and all the stuff like that. It just looks like a massive crater. Yeah. Anyway, let's head on up and see what else this ancient fort has to offer us. So we can see here, folks, the side we came in, all the edges there's built. And then look at this massive hole that's dug. And then this perimeter leads right around here. Wow, it goes on all the way along there. This has been a massive hilltop fort. Oh aye, it's like they've dug into the natural bedrock. So they've used this bedrock here as like a natural surrounding boundary. See, within it you can almost see piles of rubble. Yeah. It makes the grass rise up like mounds. And each of them would have been a little house or a little building. Maybe a small business shoeing like horses or sharpening up their spears. They maybe even had people that would like make bow and arrows or like longbows. Look at this here, it's almost like a cave. Look at this incredible geology here. Look at that, it almost looks like it's fully like built. This is an unusual bit here, it looks like they've had some sort of cement. Yeah, kind of what we're witnessing here, folks, it's probably volcanic bedrock here. Because sometimes the sedimentary rocks got caught up within the flow back in the days of the volcanic land, and you see it here. The rocks almost look like they're burnt. But those big pebbles get caught up within like the flow of the lava and then become part of the final rock. And it just stands here within this wild landscape. Yeah, look at this outer boundary here. Oh aye. So Channel DJ is just theorising here. It looks like there's been a huge circular building in this area. And you can kind of see the outline of it. Oh, definitely a ditch. Did you say this place had been excavated at a certain time? See, that could have been one of the trenches if there was archaeologists. Yeah, and there's definitely mounds here. This must have been the whole complex within this area. All the way to like the edge, and I would think there's got to be something there which was either defensive or built. So there's probably more remains over the brow of this hill. Look at this, folks, there's a strange low bit in this, the bit of the dike here. See this could have been an original entrance here potentially. But then you never know. Maybe if they were excavating. See, it looks like there's been a path leading right through and then down there. It could just be an animal path now. Yeah, wow, look, this is a super deep hole.
This is the midden pit.
Yeah, there could be stuff dumped in there, eh? Like an old midden. I can't believe the depth of that hole. Because it almost looks like it's been dug out. See the way that natural, well, that outer perimeter wall goes right around the far side of there and all the way around this side.
Maybe it was an entrance as well, eh? But
could have been.
But done defensively.
So look at this massive hollow in the ground here, folks. We're just theorising as to where the original entrance was into this place. And it could have been down here where this low bit is, where the Channel DJ is walking. Because it's almost like the land is shaped and cut out and it curves up to what would have been the actual fort there on the hilltop. It's often cool looking at the lie of the land and figuring out where things were. What does it look like?
It looks like if you were going to build an entrance,
Oh aye, yeah, it totally does look like the sort of bit people would approach from and come up. And that path looks like it would take you around the outer perimeter, and then this one looks like it would take you into the heart of the fort. But it almost looks like that's been landscaped there as well. Yeah. So they maybe had a defensive position looking over. This is so interesting, folks. We're uncovering the layers of history here. Whoa, a pheasant there, we caught it on camera. That's the sort of bird in Scotland that gives you a fright. Whoa, look how many midges is here. I don't know if that would come out on the camera. Yeah, because look, they must have had some sort of path, because see how it comes around here? Yeah, that is interesting to see. And in this area here, it is just strange, because it's like a secondary outer wall. But then there has been forts with multiple outer perimeters, like Carterthins and stuff like that I've mentioned. Just because that's another big Angus fort quite near here, it's good to kind of compare it. And then at this side it's got that mad big hole. Oh hey, look at that, that must be one of those big funguses. Crazy, folks. Looks like a massive chocolate truffle or something. So I'm just going to the highest point on this hill here, folks, to make sure there's nothing else that we're missing. Here it almost looks like for some reason that deep hole's been part of the complex. Because this area we're standing on looks like the outer perimeter. You can see the ridge leading round here, right up to that hill where we walked along. I think the first thing we looked at was the well. This looks like it's been something else. They might have dug a way down so they could have quite a big structure and it was still below the level of the hill for defensive reasons. Again, they might have had a big roundhouse down there. Sometimes on these adventures, folks, we throw out a lot of theories and then sometimes we realise, yeah, it could have been a store and it had to be low down to keep the meat cool. Because like I was theorising, it was like hunter-gatherers of the time, barbarians of the Glen. They were quite tribal, I believe, back in the days when stuff like this was on the go. And it's mad just to think, like 2,000 years ago, we are witnessing what was a settlement. Travelling back in time almost, folks. This is an unusual bit here as well. See, quite often it could have been like wooden buildings as well as the stone. We only see the stone remains which are left, unfortunately. But look, because there's these like stones, almost like there's been a building, because it's no the solid bedrock we've been seeing. And look, it's interesting, all these stones here, and then it's kind of within this area. Yeah, do you think? Aye, that's true. They would have everybody kind of sitting round, and then maybe they would have a massive fire here, or maybe they'd have a big pig on the roast here. They would have a big spit, maybe eating the catch of the day. It's just so interesting. Yeah, it's so sheltered in here. Also, it would be extremely defensive. Yeah, that's a red kite there flying past. Massive birds of prey, folks. The crazy things we see out when we're exploring these lands, it's mad, like the wildlife that's hidden as well as the history. Such a rich variation of things and rich variation of history. It's just mad to think about the communities and the people that's walked on this land before we came. And it's so interesting to document this stuff before it disappears forever. You get an idea of how it looked at a certain time before it's gone. Because each year all this vegetation just keeps building up, covering more and more of the history. Places like this just become a sanctuary for wildlife. Check this out, folks, there's a square here. I don't know how well it comes out in the camera. It could be an old square from one of the settlements here, one of the little buildings. But all throughout this fort there's little remains like that. They're either holes in the ground or mounds. But sometimes places like this would have gotten levelled, maybe for like ancient battles and stuff. Yeah, there's little buildings out there as well. So maybe the fort and stuff kept getting bigger and bigger, and eventually they had to start squeezing the houses further out towards the edge. But yeah, it could have been, that's maybe when they put in the secondary bit. But I think it's quite a sheer rock face there, and that was how they often built these like defensive places on top of hills like that. Yeah. This is an interesting mound here as well, but also I was wanting to look at the bedrock seam there. Look at this, folks, this is quite a large mound and it must have definitely been something. Yeah, it's all separate little stones. I can kind of see it down through the bushes. But it's a large mound, and if you consider how long it's been abandoned, it gives you an idea of how massive it must have been originally. Yeah, check this out, folks. Look at the bedrock here. Look, this has got more of that stuff. It almost looks like it's been burnt or something for like a blast. Because it's no like the rock, is it? But you see it's throughout the ground here. Because you see a standard rock there, that's what the rock looks like. And then you get this madness, which seems to be like over the rocks. Because even these other rocks are like affected next to them. Yeah, there's just little, also here, like remains of buildings and stone piles just covered up from vegetation. I don't know how well it comes out on the camera because it's obviously all just grass there, but to the human eye you can clearly see like the outlines of some interesting little buildings and that. And the view that you get from these hilltops is just so special. I love recording little bits of Scotland that's like hardly seen and sharing it with the world. And this is no different, folks. The view all the way down that direction, probably looking as far as like Perthshire and onwards. Look at this, folks. Here's an example of the sort of stones. This is what they would have been constructing the buildings with. And because this is a sheltered area here, you can actually see more originally how it looked because there's not the vegetation growing over it. But it's kind of like a mixture of these sorts of stones, and then now and again you get these bedrock seams. But most of the piles of stones, which I'm thinking are houses, it's fully sandstone nuggets like that.
Or just gaps in the bedrock that they filled in to create the fort.
Yeah, they've dug away I think at the bedrock as well, around the edges to try and make like a natural perimeter. Look at this, folks, we're just noticing this mound in the ground here, and it's almost looks like it's got a tunnel, and we were just thinking it looks like there's been a tunnel or something going under here. And it would be interesting to think if they had an actual entrance for their original entrance into the like hilltop fort. It's crazy how they might have had a wee tunnel which went into that building, and you would have to go through there before you could get into the fort. Yeah, they would have maybe dug through the bedrock, made a little tunnel, built over it like a little arch there, and then that was it. And then when you see the feat of what they've done there, digging through the bedrock, it wouldn't surprise you. They could do a lot more than what people expect. A lot of people think they were just like cavemen and stuff back then, but they had things and ways of doing things that we don't even understand to this day. Right, folks, that's us off this mad windy hill, so I'm going to end this one here. Thanks very much for watching. Goodbye from me, goodbye from the channel DJ, and we'll catch you very soon for the next one.